Hi everybody, my name is Anjali and welcome to the staged reading of my Theater Studies Honors Thesis performance. It's called Entirely Distinct and I am so excited to share it with all of you.
Welcome. Welcome to the theater. Welcome to the show.
We're all here together.
I'm glad that you're here.
Are you happy to be here? I would hope so. We'll see what you say at the end.
How are you? I'm asking genuinely, so you can be honest. Isn't that funny how are you kind of just means hello? I mean, do you think people want to know how you are? I thought about this for a long time, almost as long as I've been lonely. So,
How are you? Thank you for sharing that. We're going to ask you some questions just for you to think about as you watch this play. Just think about them.
What does it mean to belong?
And what does it mean to be lonely?
What do these feelings feel like?
what are their purposes?
Are they supposed to feel sad, feeling lonely, or unbelonging? Would it be good or sustainable to always feel together?
Just some things to think about. I know I'll be thinking about them.
It's time to formally meet our company.
Our company's the best.
We live in our corner, our little home inside of our school. This is our space, and we're glad you're here.
We do have some house rules, and we will tell you them now. Dear audience,
Foremost, be respectful of our theater etiquette. Just be nice. I know some of you may know this already, but others do not.
Audience, we've welcomed you into our home, so please treat it like this is your home too.
Thank
Thank
you. Our
Our
company, we
We
are Adlib,
Spotlight,
Q,
Curtain call,
Spectacle,
audition.
backstage.
and Playboy.
We
are
company.
and you, our audience.
We are all students, but only some of us are theater students. We are all theater makers, theater practitioners, theater enthusiasts.
We are all theater lovers, and I hope that most of you are too. We are friends, we are community, we are cast, and we are company.
Belonging. What is belonging? Does it require an effort, or do we suddenly just one day discover that we belong somewhere? Is it something we search for, or do we just stumble upon it?
A place that I feel comfortable letting go.
Feeling seen and heard.
Trusting people with your opinions and your beliefs and your creative vision.
Feeling like you're a part of the experience, that people want you there, and that your participation brings value to others. Feeling welcomed and happy.
I don't want to give any prescriptive descriptions because I think, even for me, it manifests in a slew of different
confidence
ways.
in yourself and also confidence in the people around you and respect and mutual respect.
Natural compatibility.
Not only are you included, but you are embraced.
Working hard and putting out a product that I'm proud of. The people who can facilitate that.
There is a need for me.
It seems like when our generation was younger, in elementary and middle school, everyone did something with the performing arts. Everyone, right? In some way. There's something there about childhood and theater. What is it? How does this interest become instilled in us? And how does it evolve to our connection today?
I was 3 years old when I started performing, but I pretty much only did dance early on, ballet specifically. I was never particularly good at it though. Compared to others in my class, I mean,
I got to a certain level where I was on point and I guess I was considered good, I guess. But I was never considered like outstanding or anything. Yeah, but I always really enjoyed the acting roles because they didn't have very much technical stuff going on, so I didn't have to worry about all that. And I just thought it was so fun. In middle school, I guess that's when dance became a structure, not just whatever fun thing I did, which I was really needing at the time. I needed something to focus my energy on since school was really easy for me, and I didn't have many friends. Then in high school,
It
It
just
just
seems
seems natural.
since I was already getting acting roles in my dance company, to join my school's theater club. It was tiny. Since it had just started the year before, the theater at my school, I don't know if you've been in that theater before, but like backstage specifically and like on the stage, horrendous. There is no backstage basically. Like the dressing rooms are just like two tiny little staircases. But it was really fun.
It started when I began public speaking. My mom put me in this program at our church when I was 6, and it was a group called New Jersey Orators, meaning basically public speakers of New Jersey. For some reason, they sort of branched out of my church, so I would just start practicing with them at the age of 6, just to see how the process went. Then when I was 7, they were like, we think you could actually do this. So they basically had a 7-year-old speaking at these huge events, like I spoke for Congressman Johnson & Johnson in different companies, federal agencies, Black Lives Matter type movements, things like that. In 3rd grade, I auditioned for Jean Valjean in Les Mis, and I got it. And that's what started everything. From then on, I probably did like every single play my high school and middle school offered. They say that all theater kids are weird. All the guys from where I was from just didn't find it cool to, be in plays. Like, they wanted to do sports and stuff, but it gave me an outlet to express myself, of course, and I also like doing things outside the box. So for me at the time, it just felt super different. Like, nobody was sort of doing it, and it was something that I could call my own. Being on the stage for the first time, that adrenaline, the butterflies, all of that is something I had never felt before, except when I was public speaking. So it reminded me of something I was already used to. The passion just grew from there, and I kept going back.
My grandmother very much so emphasized the arts for me and my sister, so she would take us to see all kinds of stuff. She'd take us to art museums, to the ballet, opera, but especially to theater, because that was one of her favorite things. So it was one of our favorite things. And before that, when I was in high school, I did speech and debate, and I realized that the event that I did within speech, everything was very performative and very dramatic. So coming to college, I knew I wanted to continue something like that. But speech and debate here is incredibly competitive, so I kind of decided on a whim to audition for a student theater show, and it was great. So then I did another one, and now here I am. Before becoming involved in theater in college, the only other experience I had on stage was guitar. I was in the classical guitar ensemble at my school, and I enjoyed being on stage and performing in that, but for completely different reasons.
What was that like?
I think that it's interesting, showing somebody your music versus just like being ridiculous on stage. It's totally different, and you get a very different feeling from it. But I know that it contributed to making me, I don't want to say less scared or anything, but just like, oh, I've been on a stage before. I can totally do it again. I've grown up around theater, and
I know that I love it.
But it was very sudden almost, me deciding to get involved in theater in college, because it's not something that I've always done, but it fit really well for me. And I enjoy just being able to get completely out of my own head into a different world.
When I transferred to a predominantly white, private, Christian, K-12 school in 4th grade, that's really where I found myself drawn to theater. I don't remember doing anything or being offered any sort of performing arts at my public elementary school, except for maybe actually I don't really remember any sort of performances. But at my private school, there were shows for every single grade. So it was very quickly ingrained into us that this was an option. But of course, compared to athletics, it wasn't as popular. I remember my first Broadway show was Cinderella, and we went as a family. It was a very significant moment. And then shortly after that, I remember seeing Wicked and Aladdin and just being super starstruck. The first musical off-Broadway that I saw was Bye Bye Birdie. Yes, but no. Kiss Me Kay. No, wait. It was Bye Bye Birdie. It was Bye Bye Birdie, and I was in elementary school at the time, but it was a middle school production. And that's when I decided, I was like, I have to be in this. I have to be in this. As I'm reflecting, my dad took me and my brother to see it, which is interesting because I don't think my parents would have handpicked theater for me. Because ever since I was little, I loved singing, I loved attention, I loved performing. I just loved performing in creative arts. My parents were mostly worried about the time commitment that came with theater, and it was also just the fact that I wasn't necessarily going to build a career out of that extracurricular. So in high school, there was some pressure surrounding that. And then the audition of my school being such a unique environment, since I was one of the very few Asian American students, and the religious perspective of the performing arts was just so ingrained in us to perform for only one audience, God, and to devote all of our talents to a higher purpose. Other than that, I don't know, just kids being kids and doing theater.
It was just kind of sheer luck that I ended up in theater. In my middle school, you had to pick 2 creative electives, and at the time I was not very creative, not into the fine arts, so I picked chorus because I did a little bit of singing, and then I was kind of stuck with theater because I can't do art. I can't play an instrument, I can't dance, but ever since then I've really enjoyed it. Theater is just a huge passion of mine, and I've grown to love it, both on the acting side and the technical side. I didn't realize I had a strong interest in theater until maybe my senior year of high school.
How does that realization change your thought process?
I'm a very pessimistic person. I see a lot of negatives, so I was very grumpy doing theater. I didn't want to associate with a lot of theater people, rightfully so, because my school had a lot of musical theater people, which, well, they're crazy. But I remember one conversation with our technical teacher where he just came over to me, he sat me down, and he asked me why I did theater, because on the outside it seemed like I hated it. And it really got me thinking, I truly do love theater, even if I don't show it, because it's such a creative space. I love putting in the effort and seeing the end result. So, despite doing theater for 4 years in high school, doing the classes, all the plays, I even did speech and debate competitively, so I did a lot of theater through that. It wasn't until 12th grade where I really discovered or accepted that I liked the medium.
You'd be surprised, but Texas is kind of big on theater, weirdly. Especially for kids, at least in high school. When I was a little kid, I did dance, and then I had friends who did a little community theater near me. I remember one of my friends telling me about it, and because I'd done dance before, I thought, oh, I'll give that a shot, because it was musical theater. We have UIL, which is the big public school theater competition, and it's just a bigger deal than in other states. We also had ISAS, which is an arts festival, but it was really affected because of COVID, so UIL and ISAS didn't really happen as much during my high school years. I remember my freshman year, I went to the ISAS Arts Festival, and it was a bunch of different Texas schools, and some from Oklahoma too. I was in the theater company, which was for straight theater, and we would perform scenes that we would do in our high school theater class. We also brought the musical there, and we would perform an abridged version of the musical at ISAS. We didn't have the international Thespian Society Festival, really, but I totally wish we could have.
If you had thespians, would you have liked that better than what you had?
We started chartering it my freshman year, but we never got super into it. I don't know how it would have changed things for us, though. I do know that Thespians has a little more notoriety, just because it's everywhere. They have international Thespians, and it's more translatable, but ISAS was also for dance, and band, and orchestra, so it was a give and take.
I had a differently unique introduction to theater. For a bit of context, I went to a high school that was for STEM, a vocational school. It was a super tight, and you had to take a science test to get in type school. It was also super small, with like 75 people in our graduating class. We didn't have a dedicated arts program.
We didn't have enough funding for that.
I actually don't think that's legal in New Jersey, but I guess we managed to find a loophole around it. So instead of having performing arts or even fine arts classes, we had a bunch of students who made their own groups, and if those students started failing to do that, then those groups would just cease to exist.
Elementary through high school, I always did the shows, and I was in arts magnet schools, which sounds really special, but they're not funded. It's just sort of a specialization that they give them.
When I was a junior in high school and then a senior, I was president of my drama club. I directed a musical in high school, The Lightning Thief, and funny story, we did it the next year at college. Even though I was involved in theater a little bit before high school, I would say directing a musical was where my journey really started, because I was kind of just thrown right into the thick of it. I had to figure out all of this on my own, figure out how to order rights and pull together a pit band and do blocking and costumes and all of that with like a $1 budget because we'd spent all of our money on science equipment. And it was so much fun. And then it was such a jarring experience to go from that, where practically nobody was interested or familiar with theater, to come here, where it seems like everyone admitted is this double arts and science student, including you, audience.
My church did the nativity play, and I was in that. I was a cameraman because it was like we're spreading the good news. So it's a news station kind of thing. And then in high school, I was really involved. I was our state thespian officer for the International Thespian Festival, and I mainly did theater in relation to my education and less so with community theater. In high school, theater was an extremely toxic environment. The teachers were just toxic and didn't care about the students as much as they cared about the program. Now, I did get a really good training, and I feel very equipped to take on college theater because of that, from what I've been exposed to.
And then I came to college, and that changed everything. College is a turning point for everything, for everyone. It just is. Away from parents for the first time, away from your home.
Lots and lots and lots of new people, new activities, new opportunities. Now, I didn't think I was going to be a theater major in college. Truthfully, I didn't think I would do very much with theater after high school at all. In college, everything seemed to just become more
serious. College theater? Now that is a big deal.
Some of us do more with theater. Some of us do less now. Some do theater completely differently, but still in an eerily familiar way.
I added creative writing. Me too!
As much as I loved theater, I understood that it was not the most sustainable career.
Me too.
Doing so many plays is what made me fall out of love with just wanting to do theater. And now I want to completely try the opposite and do TV and film.
Can't relate.
There's this whole world of like professional theater and acting and playwriting that I had no idea about. Because I was just this random 18-year-old who had put together this kind of mid-production at my STEM high school, and I wanted to figure out what that was before I moved on into the real world. Emory has a really awesome theater program. I started off thinking I would only do a little bit of student theater. Because as a STEM person, you're surrounded by a lot of people, and most of them are saying like, oh, so why are you doing theater? Just for fun, right? Like, it's not gonna actually help you later on in your career. I think there was a part of me that wanted to convince those voices in my life that theater is not just something you do for fun and you tack on at the end of your list of degrees as like a hobby, but it's also got a lot of transferable skills, and it is genuinely useful to put yourself above or apart from other STEM majors who look down on the performing arts. So I would love to prove that to them.
Yeah. I wasn't really sure what theater would be like in college because I'm like, okay, Emory isn't known for theater. It's not a BFA or whatever. But then I was going to go to the playwriting program, and I was like, I don't know what that's going to be like. As it turns out, there are literally 4 of us. But it sounded like something really big. I know it's really good, but it's like, what I've seen with Emory is it's not exactly small, but you find a group sort of, it's a very strong network, and everyone knows each other and is very nice to each other. I mean, I know there's some drama, but it is very minimal compared to what I'm coming from. I'm still kind of working on that mindset because I used to sort of like, I used to think not kind things. There was just a lot of shit talking, and that was a big part, and now it's like, I don't really have a reason to. These people are really nice. And I feel like I'm part of the group.
With theater, it's specifically people being creative because they want to be creative. And they genuinely love it. In the business school, if you go to a marketing class or something, it's people being creative because they have to be creative. Being in that kind of environment is very intense, and everybody's just trying to one-up each other. It's awful. And then with psychology, it's people learning because they really want to learn. And I think you get that in a number of majors, but with the business school, it's people going to class because they have to go to class because they want to get a consulting job and then go and do other things. People are so set in their ways and set in their mindset that it's almost like they're stuck on their path. They don't see it that way, but they're stuck in this I'm gonna one-up you mentality because that's what I need to do to get where I need to go. And that is completely the opposite of these other environments that I'm in, which is why I'm so grateful for theater. Because I don't want to be in that kind of environment all the time. The longer you spend in the business school, the more you kind of adopt that mentality without even realizing it.
Obviously, I enjoy acting, or obviously, like, I would love to direct or something in the future, but I also think that when it comes to immediately, like, what sort of, like, job opportunities I'd be looking for, I think that my work in student theater has honestly been the closest to what I would imagine that looks like when it comes to arts administration and management and just, like, communicating. I would love to work in arts administration. I know. At least for this summer, I was looking at different like literary internship opportunities at theater companies. I mean, I'd love to direct, obviously. But I would love to perhaps. I've thought about going to grad school for writing, but I mean, I kind of have a bunch of different ideas of what that looks like, and I wouldn't say I have any sort of solid plan.
Back to my parents, I remember mentioning that I wanted to maybe minor in theater or like pursue a piano performance minor, and they were like, okay, well, it has to be a minor because with all your other passions, maybe that's like the least stable and you're not gonna make as much money. And so that was the biggest thing, I think, for them is it just wouldn't be setting me up for success. And I don't think it's that they didn't believe in me, but they also know like how hardcore the world is and how competitive the business is.
Do you feel like that affected your relationship with your parents?
Maybe. I'm sure it did, but they've always been at every single one of my performances. So I know they are supportive of me and they love that I sing, and honestly, I do think it's a little bit sad for them and for me that I'm not doing as much of it in college. I know I really love performing and I wanted to continue doing it. I just think even in the back of my mind, I know that being in ensembles and off-Broadway productions, it's a possibility. I just feel very sensitive to the messages that I would have to combat in the theater, being like, I'm not good enough and constantly comparing myself. I see my other friends who I'm still very close with from high school. Almost all of them pursue theater and are doing it as their profession. And just seeing their challenges, I feel very blessed to be doing a very different alley, just because I don't know if I'd be able to withstand it. Like, I'm definitely still in therapy, navigating and processing a lot of messages that I internalized in middle school, just like feeling isolated, feeling a little bit separated from like the main groups. I just like doing the full thing, full income for my income would be really challenging. So I really admire and respect everyone who does it. I think a lot of the isolation I was processing had to do with some religious narratives surrounding my church and my family. And so that was really hard. Those both being predominantly Asian communities, and then interestingly enough, like coming to school and like being in theater. When I did professional theater, it was so special. We all got along really well and we were all very vulnerable with each other. I don't know how much I adore the performance process or even the actual performing itself, but rather the experience was really fun. I love that. It was a really hard time in my life, like just getting out of my breakup, and I was just really struggling with my mental health and I guess navigating what stability looked like. And so even though the theater process itself was not stable in any way, with wild rehearsal hours and constant changes, and we had a COVID scare, the people and the art itself was really stable. It felt like it was a way for me to process all of my feelings with a community that I know supported me, and even though I'm not friends, or at least close friends, I would say half of the cast, there are a few that were in my recent production and who I see around campus that I know and I remember were there for me during that time. And honestly, that
really mattered to me. Like Audition, many of us find community inside and outside of theater, but there may just be something special about what brings us together here. Something different, something unique.
I feel like
You're like belonging is just...
How do I say this? Not like you belong somewhere, but
I think a really good hallmark of it is that you feel sufficiently supported.
By the people around you. So that could be like your friends or people who are in authority over you, the people that you work with, or that may be working underneath you as a leader. It can kind of...
Man, and then loneliness.
The lack of such a support system, but also feeling like your experience doesn't align with the people around you. That there's nobody that's like you, per se, in the area that you're existing in.
And whether or not that's actually true, I think the difference between feeling that there is a sense of belonging is what comes with the understanding or feeling of whether you're alone or not. Because realistically,
We all have entirely distinct experiences in life. But there is a way that you can be supported in which you feel like that's not true, and that you've got people behind you.
That is the difference to me. You can be alone and not lonely, but you can be with other people, and if they're not like you, if you have nothing to connect over, you practically are.
Who are you?
I am Adlib.
thank you. Who are you?
I am a student.
Thank you. Who are you?
I am a leader.
Thank you. Who are you?
I am someone who loves being on stage.
Thank you. Who are you?
I'm someone's child.
Thank you. Who are you?
I'm honest.
Thank you. Who are you?
I am essential.
Thank you. Who are you?
I am myself and no one else.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Who are you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Who are we? When I think about what it means to be lonely, I think about the first half of last semester. Picture this. I just got here, I don't really have friends, and whoever I've met is kind of just like, hey. And we eat a meal together, and after, it's like, oh, hey. I remember during that time, loneliness is like, you just don't have that connection with people. That grows over time. You're on your own and not in the way you would like. Like, it's not solitude, it's like involuntary. Yeah, isolation is sort of a forced thing, I feel. I think about in prison, solitary confinement, isolation is like someone's like, okay, you are on your own. And loneliness is kind of a looming, very passive sort of process. The theater was a blessing because during that time last semester, I would have rehearsal and I could go there and be met by all these really cool people. And because that like bond we created in the rehearsal room, I was looking forward to that each day that I would have rehearsal. That was really nice. Something to look forward to, something to hold on to and know this is a connection that I have. And this is what I want my connections to look like while I'm here.
Thank you.
Who are you?
Last semester, with everything that happened with the show, it was definitely a lot. Too much, really. It was pretty bad. You know what I'm talking about. I feel like everyone knows. But if you don't know, well, you can imagine. I know that my position on the board, mediation, I guess it was what I signed up for, but also it was literally not what I signed up for. I actually did not think it could have gone that bad when I applied for the position, and it was an entire whirlwind. Here's my honest opinion. The theater community at large, at least at Emory or most PWIs, already had these cracks, these rips in it. There are already so many divisions that are just inherent and unspoken in the theater community. And this is just like, this was kind of just the last straw on the camel's back, you know? Like it's The fact is, it was not an isolated experience or something that only happened because there were certain bad people that are in charge or certain incompetent leaders. This could have happened to literally any theater club. I spoke to someone who works at student involvement last spring when I was dealing with this, and he said this could literally happen to any single organization. So we're doing ample work right now with the Belonging and Community Justice Department and the university to prevent this from happening to any other club or chartered organization. This is not an incident that is insular. It's not going to just go away after all the people who were involved in the production graduate or disappear, because this kind of prejudice is always self-evident. And it's even more self-evident in theater, I would argue. It just doesn't come to light all the time. I feel like we all, as theater kids, chalk it up sometimes to it's just drama, or they're also melodramatic. But it is genuinely a systemic problem that we've been trying to fix. So this brought to light some people that these divisions were there in the community. But I think personally, I always knew that they were there. I just didn't expect them to blow up so disastrously all at once. It was a rough position to be in, I'm not gonna lie. But I was lucky to have people who supported me and reached out to ombuds on my behalf, and our advisor. And then I did all the other stuff with the people who were hurt by the production and who didn't want to speak to anyone on the production team. I'm also really lucky that I've been able to reach out to them as a person of color and as someone who's autistic, since this was something that was brought up during the conflict. And as someone who is also in a position where I can be like, even though I'm queer, that part is not prejudiced against as much as me being a person of color in theater. And I think this was also something really prominent that came up during that whole span of mediation months. I remember reaching out via text message and via email to so many of the people who had resigned, but understandably, a lot of them didn't respond to me. I'm still friends with them, they just didn't respond to that text. But a few did. So then I thought, okay, well, next year is going to be really fun. Pressure is going to be on. And I definitely do feel like that now. But that's okay. I think we're handling it. I have been so anxious this entire semester about not bucking it up.
Thank you. Who are you? Emory is full of all kinds of people, but I feel like in almost all of the other clubs or activities that I'm involved in, you know how every once in a while you come across someone and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But within theater, and especially our club, everybody just loves to be there, and nobody is necessarily outwardly, I don't want to say mean or anything, but long story short, I just have had a really great experience with everybody. Being around people in a place where I can just let go of everything else, whether it's life or school or whatever, I think a lot of that comes from shared experiences. I think it comes from caring about the same things and being nice to each other. I think that's also a huge thing. Like, I'm not going to feel like I can let go if I'm surrounded by people who make me feel like crap about myself or about the world or anything. I'm not a theater major, so theater is just like, for me. I do it purely for fun. I know that a lot of people do theater, especially on our board, because, well, they are planning on doing that as an actual career. And I think that's wonderful. I plan on going into education, so I think that doing theater will have positive effects for my career going forward. But it's not like something that I'm actively seeking out. Theater will have a positive impact in a variety of different ways. It's almost a similar thing with psychology. It's like, okay, why are you doing psych? But like, that doesn't relate to anything for me, but it does. It's understanding how people think. And I think with theater, It's understanding how people feel.
Thank you.
Who are you?
My perspective now is that theater at Emory since my freshman year has kind of been on the come up. I think that COVID was really difficult, so I remember being kind of caught off guard by the fact that there was a lack of theater community my freshman year, since I was really used to having that. In high school, the theater people were my only friends really. And so when I got to college, even though I really enjoyed doing a show and I joined student theater pretty much immediately, I could kind of tell that the people weren't necessarily friends outside of doing shows together. But I will also say that it seems like a lot of that has changed since I've been here. And as far as I know, I feel like the people younger than me, I don't think that's necessarily been their experience. It's just kind of what I thought when I came in freshman year. I think a lot of the change had to do with time, post-COVID. When I'm administering stuff for student theater, one of the only reasons that stuff doesn't crumble is because I can ask people in the past who've done it right for help. As far as I'm aware, the student theater shows the year before me didn't happen, or there were just issues with COVID and everything. Once you have a network of people who know how to get stuff done, it becomes increasingly easier to get it done because there's someone that you can reach to for help. One of the most exciting differences between student theater and other ways to do theater is that you're working with people who are your own age and you're all kind of on a similar level. I mean, even if I'm the president of a group, the fact of the matter is if someone doesn't want to do anything, there's just nothing I can do about it. You know what I mean? It's not like anybody has a contract or is getting paid or anything. Everybody's doing the work because they're passionate about it and they're interested in it. So I just think it's such a refreshing dynamic for the group that I'm part of, where it's literally no one has any sort of above or under position. Everyone's just kind of a producer if they're on the committee. So at least in comparisons to other positions that I've had, being in Greek life or in academics, even on a group project, I feel like people in the theater are super reliable. Honestly, in my experience, I've always been able to count on people to actually get the work done and do it well. Because they're only doing it because they're passionate about it. Academically though, collaborating with other theater people is sometimes really difficult. I'm not gonna lie. Especially because I think that people in theater are super similar to each other. I do find that it's really easy to work with people when you each have an assigned thing that you're the master of, if that makes sense. If you're one person is the director, one person's the actor, so it's they're the master of their character, and one person is the master of how the show looks, one person's the master of the choreography. But if you're all kind of working together and you're all doing everything on the same level, it is really difficult. And I also think that it's just particularly hard when you're all, friends. For example, in this one class I was in a group and we were all the same age. We all have really similar interests, but sometimes we would just disagree on how to execute it. It was kind of difficult for us all to have equal opinion on the same thing, and we were also almost too similarly minded that when we disagree, it was kind of whose idea is this? We're so close, yet different.
Thank you.
Who are you?
My philosophy is that I really consider people's values and compatibility with me as a person, and I also consider long-term friendships, the friends that I want to keep. And if it's not sustainable, then I don't know how much I want to put in. But with theater, even though there's a timeline, like a literal physical end to us being together, I give it my all during performances and processes with these people. I'm realizing the flaws to my philosophy. Nowadays, with a lot of people, it's hard to maintain communication all the time. I'm realizing that I need to give a lot of grace, and some friendships might just be for when they are and when we're in the same place. So I'm just kind of learning, I guess, what matters most to me and how I can pour energy and time into my relationships without it feeling painful when it's not reciprocated. I've been learning throughout college how to appreciate those friendships in different ways. Instead of feeling like I have something that's less than a friendship, that is maybe a friendship of convenience or circumstance, instead appreciating that we are able to have this different kind of relationship. I hate to diminish the feeling of belonging to a checkbox, but I do feel it as an experience. There is a community, and you feel like you belong in it, or you really don't. You can feel partially that you belong or don't, but in that partialness, there's a confusion and a pain that doesn't exist when you fully belong somewhere. As a binary or a checkbox, that would be way too simplistic. I always say it's kind of both pessimistic and optimistic to acknowledge that you don't fully belong somewhere, because there are places and people where you can feel you fully belong. It does require an effort to be open-minded and meet people where they're at, because that is important at being met where you're at in terms of actively choosing to open yourself to a particular pace or place or group of people. If it feels like you're having to change yourself, I would consider that a type of effort that is not wanted in a space where you belong. But opening your mind to different opinions and choosing to embrace a specific community or environment, I think that's the beginning of the equation of what it means to belong somewhere.
Thank you.
Who are you?
So, I got here, and I'm thinking none of these majors really fit what I want to be. I want to be an actor, so what's the closest to that? I was sort of stuck in a conundrum of how do I still go to college and be an actor? And from what I've learned now of having all these years of knowledge, I'm really starting to think that most actors just don't go to school, they just jump into their career. Because if you're going to a school that's not 100% focused on acting, what can they really do to better you as an actor that you can't do for yourself? But if I retract the things I've gained, the insights, the people I've met, the experiences, and the trips that I've been able to go on through college, just to go back and start my career, I can't really say if that would have been worth it. I know I'm happy where I am in life. Really, you just do the best from where you are and learn as you go. I've made the tightest connections and industry friends here who've been able to connect me with other younger people that are in the industry as well, and those have happened to get me gigs or help me find some type of work. I've been in a couple short films through those connections, so I think just meeting people in general was a good choice to come to college. And for my family, it's a must that we go to college and break generational curses and things of the sort. But also, to be in any industry, I think you gain a level of respect. And people know that it takes a lot to get a degree. I feel like actors are the most creative people alive. I definitely talk a lot, but I also listen as much as I talk. And coming to a place where I knew it was going to be diverse and I was going to get to meet people from different cultures was something I wanted to experience. Just meeting people has been so refreshing. It's uplifting to work with people that don't look like me and to just know that we're all going through the same stuff is something that pushes me every day.
Thank you.
Who are you?
Freshman year, I became friends with someone who wanted to do the musical review showcase. And I was like, oh, I do theater. I got big roles in musical theater in high school. I can totally do that. And the thing was that since my high school program was so small, I wasn't used to auditioning. I didn't know the culture behind it. So my audition went really poorly. That was kind of a wake-up call for me being like, just because I was good or second best or the best at my ridiculously small, just getting off the ground department in high school doesn't mean I'm a good singer. It just meant that the talent pool was very small, and now I'm with a bunch of people who did this a lot, and I couldn't match up to them. I don't really sing anymore because of that. I'll sing in the car, and that's really it. I don't like singing on stage. I don't know. That kind of shattered my confidence. It was a little bit of an ego death. I did audition for the musical the next semester though, and they were kind of mean to me. I did my audition and I practiced really hard for that audition all the time.